Republic of Western Armenia, press release. The Republic of Western Armenia, the State of Armenia, has begun the process of compensation for material losses suffered by the Armenian people, within the framework of which it has already appealed to the relevant international authorities, including the Secretary General of the United Nations Antonio Guterres, as well as to the heads of states, permanent members of the UN Security Council. To US President Joe Biden, to Russian President Vladimir Putin, to Chinese President Xi Jinping, to French President Emmanuel Macron, to British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Today, it is time to start a new process in the field of protecting the rights granted to the Armenian people and the State of Armenia by the international community, which is being implemented today. In the statement on compensation for material losses suffered by the Armenian people during the First World War, dated September the 25th, 2022, the Republic of Western Armenia, the State of Armenia, calls upon to examine and implement the compensation process for material losses suffered by the Armenian people during the First World War, taking into account reparation obligations of the Republic of Turkey to the Armenian people, as the successor of the Ottoman Empire, which is estimated 19,130,982,000 French francs in 1919 prices, according to the report and calculations of the Special Committee, acting as the part of the Special Commission on Reparations of the Paris Peace Conference, presented on April the 14th, 1919. According to the report, the material losses of Armenians were as follows. Western Armenia, or as stated in the document, Turkish Armenia. Personal material losses of the rural population, 4,601,610,000 francs. Personal material losses of the urban population, 3,235,550,000 francs. Collective material losses, 6,761,350,000 francs. Total, 14,598,510,000 francs. The Republic of Armenia and other Armenian populated territories of the Caucasus. Population losses of those settlements whose population has been completely expelled, 1,831,872,000 francs. Population losses of those settlements whose population has not been expelled, 1,293,600,000 francs. Other material losses, 1,407,000,000 francs. Total, 4,532,472,000 francs. Total material losses amounted 19,130,982,000 French francs. Thus, the obligation for reparations of the Republic of Turkey as the legal successor of the Ottoman Empire in relation to the Armenian people is 19,130,982,000 francs, according to the report and calculations of the Special Committee, acting as the part of the Special Commission on Reparations of the Paris Peace Conference, presented on April the 14th, 1919. This statement to the UN in no way concerns the issue of a claim for compensation for damage caused to the Armenian people and Armenia as a result of the Armenian genocide, and not only material. In the issue of full compensation, it is necessary to take into account the crimes committed by successive Turkish governments against the Armenian people in 1994 up to 1996, 1909, 1915 to 1918, 1919 to 1923, and continuing until today, presented in the Chapter 4 of the Statement to the UN, as well as the crimes committed by successive governments of Azerbaijan against the Armenian people in 1905 to 1906, 1918 to 1920, 1921 to 1987, 1988 to 2022, and continuing until today, presented in the Chapter 5 of the Statement to the UN. The damage caused to the Armenian people and Armenia as a result of the crimes of the successive governments of Turkey and Azerbaijan, presented in the above-mentioned chapters, and not only the material losses of the urban and rural population, but also the losses of the Armenian people not mentioned in this statement. Human losses as the result of the genocide, forced deportation and Islamization, including children and women, the loss of their homeland, patricide, loss of the area of the Armenian people, economic losses, loss of bank deposits and jewelry, insurance premiums, intangible assets, intellectual property, objects of historical, cultural, archaeological, architectural, and church heritage, learning and educational institutions, world and national cultural values, and other losses of the Armenian people. A discount is currently being made on certain and approved damages indicated in the report of the Special Committee acting as a part of the Special Commission on Reparations of the Paris Peace Conference. It is necessary to carry out a volumetric reassessment of the calculation in accordance with the current procedure and standards, since according to the calculations and definition of the professional community expert appraisers, the discount is currently 15 times. Consequently, the obligations on reparations of the Republic of Turkey as the successor of the Ottoman Empire in relation to the Armenian people amounts to 19,130,982,000 French francs in 1919 prices, according to the report and calculations of the Special Committee, acting as a part of the Special Commission on Reparations of the Paris Peace Conference, submitted on April the 14th, 1919. Today amounts to 286,964,730,000 euros, or 312,791,555,700 US dollars. At the initiative of the Special Commission of the National Assembly Parliament of Western Armenia on restitution and reparation issues in the aftermath of the Armenian genocide, the International Independent Expert and Legal Center for Reparations and Restitutions, full name is the International Independent Expert and Legal Center for Accounting, Analysis, Inventory, Audit, Volumetric Assessment, and Forensic Examination of Material and Intelligible Losses as a result of the Armenian genocide for reparations and restitutions, carries out a volumetric assessment of the full replacement value of tangible and intangible property and lost benefits of the Armenian people in the territory of the Ottoman Empire, including separately Western Armenia, Kilikia, Nakhichevan, Artsakh, and the Western Caspian region for reparations, restitutions, and indemnity after 1919 for the last more than 100 years in peacetime from military operations, terrorism, blockade, reservation of the Armenian people. Currently, the losses indicated in paragraphs 1 and 2 of Chapter 8 of the Statement to the UN are being volumetrically assessed, and a statement with the appropriate report and expert opinion of the professional international community for comprehensive reparation and restitution will be submitted to the relevant international structures in the near future. In the statement addressed to the UN, it was indicated that it was necessary to take into account the First Republic of Armenia and subsequently the Union Armenian Socialist Republic under conditions of aggression and coercion, the Alexandropol Treaty of the 2nd of December 1920 and the Kars Treaty of the 13th of October 1921 were forced to renounce the rights granted to the Armenian people and Armenian state in 1920 on the basis of unified Armenian claims, being forced to remain only within the framework of rights and jurisdiction of the Republic of Armenia. In other words, Eastern Armenia. The Third Republic of Armenia, through official statements of the leaders of the state, repeated that it remains outside the framework of the rights granted to the Armenian people and the Armenian state, the State of Armenia, in 1918-1920, provided on the basis of unified Armenian claims, and is forced to remain only within the framework of the rights and powers of the Republic of Armenia. In other words, Eastern Armenia, and defending this issue, is transferred directly to the Armenian people, to the broad circles of the Armenian public. The present authorities of the Republic of Western Armenia, by the statements of the officials, fully refused from all rights given to the Armenian people and in the State of Armenia by the international community in 1918-1920. However, all this doesn't mean that Armenians scattered around the world as a result of the genocide of Armenians can accept such realities imposed on the Republic of Armenia and the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. In the current situation, the entire Armenian people are already a political subject competent to resolve all issues related to the prevention of real threats and challenges against the entire Armenian people. Armenians scattered around the world, the number of whom is much larger than their compatriots living in the Republic of Armenia and the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, choose the way of protection of the common rights granted to the Armenian people and the State of Armenia in 1918-1920 by the international community, aimed at the final and fair solution of the Armenian question. In the statement to the UN, it is indicated that taking into account the comprehensive rights of the Armenian people in the world, according to which Armenians of Western Armenia, like any nation in the world, have the right to live, develop, and have their future, which means that they have the right to demand the establishment of their own state on their ancestral homeland, in the Armenian highland, in Armenia. Armenians of Western Armenia and the state structures of the Republic of Western Armenia, the State of Armenia, acting as the continuity state of the State of Armenia, recognized de facto and de jure in 1920, declare that they undertake to protect the rights granted to the Armenian people by the Serfs Peace Treaty and the arbitration award of the 28th President of the United States of America, Woodrow Wilson, and to implement these rights, including the demarcation of the border between the State of Armenia and the Republic of Azerbaijan. We appeal to you with a request to study and implement the process of compensating for the material losses suffered by the Armenian people during the First World War, taking into account the reparation obligations of the Republic of Turkey as the legal successor of the Ottoman Empire in relation to Armenian people, which amounts to 19,130,982,000 francs, according to the report and calculations of the Special Committee acting as a part of the Special Commission for Reparations of the Paris Peace Conference, presented on April the 14th, 1919. We ask you to initiate a qualimetric reassessment of the calculation in accordance with the current procedure and standards, since, according to calculations and determinations by expert appraisers of the professional international community, the discount is currently 15 times. Consequently, the reparation obligations of the Republic of Turkey as the legal successor of the Ottoman Empire towards the Armenian people currently amounts to 286,964,730,000 euros. To carry out reparations to the affected parties, the Armenians of Western Armenia, Republic of Western Armenia, the State of Armenia, and the Armenians of Eastern Armenia, the Republic of Armenia, sending them to the appropriate national state structures. While preparing this statement to the UN archival materials of the Paris Peace Conference of 1919-1920, decisions of states and international structures on this issue were used. Expert opinions of expert appraisers of the professional international community, research and publications of historians, lawyers, economists, culturologists, genocide scholars and diplomats, including the work of Armenian scientists John Kirakasyan, Ruben Saakyan, Mkırtich Nersisyan, Yuri Barsegov, Martik Gasparyan, Alexander Manasyan, Ara Papian, Livon Biklaryan, and others, as well as materials from the collection of historical and legal documents, political and legal foundations for solving the Armenian issue, a single political and legal package of documents on the protection of the rights of Western Armenia and Armenians of Western Armenia were taken into account. The full text of the statement of the Republic of Western Armenia, the State of Armenia, to the United Nations on compensation for material losses suffered by the Armenian people during the First World War is attached. Press service of the Government of the Republic of Western Armenia, the State of Armenia, April the 22nd, 2024.